Hello and welcome everyone to those CyVerse webinar series. I'm Tina Lee, CyVerse's User Engagement Officer. Today's webinar is on the data and analysis resources that are publicly available through NEON, the National Ecological Observatory Network, a continental scale network of ecological observatories to collect open access ecological data. Our presenters are Donna O'Leary and Bridget Haas of NEON, with assistance from CyVerse's own Tyson Swetnam, who is our own bright and shiny spatial data guru. So for those of you who are new to CyVerse, we are a cyber infrastructure project funded by the U.S. National Science Foundation. And this free webinar series helps fulfill a key part of our mission to train scientists on how to use CyVerse's computational resources. I'm going to take care of some quick housekeeping before we start the webinar. Our presentation today is roughly 30 minutes. Please be sure to mute your audio, but do enable the chat window, and you're welcome to type any questions there for Donna and Bridget to answer after their presentations. The webinar video recording and other materials will be posted on our website later for you to review at any time. In addition to these webinars, CyVerse offers training and learning events. So head to our website, learning pages, for more information about upcoming workshops and resources to help you learn and teach using CyVerse. We're also happy to announce that we have launched recently Discovery Environment 2.0. It's the same great workspace, but with a new interface and more functionality to help you do your science. So please go and check it out. And now I'm pleased to introduce our presenters. Donna O'Leary is a research scientist and data science educator for NEON. Like many research ecologists, Donna gained hands-on field experience working for the U.S. National Park Service, but was motivated by the emergence of GIS technology and conservation management to head back to grad school, ultimately earning his PhD in geographical sciences from the University of Maryland. Bridget Haas is also a research scientist with NEON, specializing in remote sensing technologies. And now Bridget leads the calibration and fieldwork for NEON's airborne observation platform data collections. So welcome, Bridget and Donald.
That's great. Thank you, Tina. What a nice introduction. My name is Donna O'Leary. I'm a data science educator here with the National Ecological Observatory Network. I'm going to spend the next probably 7 minutes or so giving you all a brief introduction to NEON, kind of pointing out some of our important resources. But I wanted to touch on first something that Tina mentioned, that this will be recorded. You can watch the recording later. So I know we're going to really fly through quite a lot of material here in the next 30 minutes. Don't worry about keeping up with it and clicking along. You can always go back and do that recording to catch up on anything that you may have missed. So what we're looking at here is the neonscience.org homepage. This is our website. We just had a rebuild a couple months ago, so a nice fresh facelift for you. I wanted to point out a couple of things here right on our homepage. If you scroll down, we have a couple of banners, which is the latest news from NEON. We just had a data release, which is exciting. You can read about that, especially if you're going to be using our data in your research. We also have this observatory status page. Just like everything else on the globe, we've been affected by COVID-19. So you can read there to see how COVID has disrupted our operations and what you can expect in terms of our data products for the next couple of years here. So our observatory is designed to be operated for at least 30 years as prescribed by the National Science Foundation. Unfortunately, we expect 2020 and 2021 to have some partial, maybe substantial interruptions to our data products that are being offered and available. We need to keep our field scientists and our airplane operators and everybody safe out there while they're collecting data. So unfortunately, this means that we might have a few fewer data availability from this era. If you keep scrolling down, you can see some of our upcoming events. We definitely recommend you keep up to date on those. You can follow us on Twitter as well, listed over here on the side. Yeah, so a little bit more about the observatory. It seems like a lot of folks know about NEON, but many don't. So I'm just going to give maybe a 2-minute overview here. And to do that, I want to go click on our field sites list here. And oh, no, sorry, I'm getting a little disoriented. This is the button I wanted, explore field sites. All right, still getting used to the new website. So you can see our observatory has locations as indicated by all of these icons spread from the Arctic Sea up in Alaska, out to Hawaii, to Puerto Rico, and quite a few within the continental United States. I'm going to zoom in on one that's really close to my house here. So I live pretty close to Rocky Mountain National Park here in northern Colorado. And as you start to zoom in on these different type of sites, you'll see some of them have water droplets, some of them have little mountains here. Those are the indicators for our terrestrial and our aquatic focused sites. If you keep zooming in, you'll see quite a few polygons start to pop up here. So this yellow outline is the extent of our remote sensing observations. So Bridget will be speaking most about our AOP, our aerial observation platform. Remote sensing data is collected from at least a 10 by 10 kilometer rectangle, usually quite a bit bigger. Within that rectangle are going to be contained our various instruments and sampling locations. So we have three main sampling modes, if you will. The airborne remote sensing is one. We have our instrumented systems, which are things like temperature sensors, incoming solar radiation sensors, pretty much anything that is electronic and spits out a strings of ones and zeros. And then we have our observed system, which I like to think of as our boots on the ground. These are our field scientists out there making real world observations. So you can click on the legend here and start to look at our various features of these field sites. You can look at the sampling plots where we make our observed samples as indicated by these little icons here. The red polygon shown here is the extent of our sampling location, kind of where we have purview to go out and make observations. And then you can see from the spatial distribution of these sampling locations, we have a stratified random spatial alignment, I guess you could say, for our samples here. So you can kind of look into more greater detail about our specific trapping locations for mosquitoes, where we make bird observations, etc. So this is just a really quick kind of continental scale to plot level scale view of what we do. I know that if you want more information, I'll point you to my favorite resource, which is our YouTube channel. So if you go to youtube.com and search for Neon Science, right on our homepage, you should get kind of an auto playing video, which is a really good overview to what we do. If you want to learn more about Neon, I'd recommend this Neon Science Explained. If you spend about a half hour watching these YouTube videos, you will be so much better off for it because they can explain a lot more in 30 minutes than I can. Okay, the next thing I want to touch on here is if you go back to our homepage, under data and samples, you click this little down arrow here. I'm going to click the arrow next to data portal. This is going to navigate us to our Explore Data Products page. So I'm going to open up the Explore Data Products here. And this is your kind of graphical user interface to interact with our data products. Bridget will be speaking here shortly about how to download these data products through our API. But I find this Explore Data Products page to be a really useful and I guess convenient way to get to know our data products. So we have 181 data products from 81 of our field sites across the continent. To start to whittle those down, you can use search features over here on the left. So I mentioned those, the remote sensing data, you can select to just view those. If you're interested in, say, biodiversity, you might want to look at our terrestrial observation systems or aquatic observation systems, where you can get, real observed values for things like how many birds are there in the area, what type of coarse down wood bulk density might you have, and a bunch of other measurements that we take out there in the field. Last thing I want to touch on here before I hand it over is how are you going to learn more about these data products once you've identified one that maybe you're interested in. So you can click on this title here, and this will bring you to the data product overview page. And this has all sorts of great details about what's going on with these data products. So we have a description and an abstract for this breeding landbird point count data product. We have some additional information here, a recommendation for how to cite our data if you're going to use them. And things I find to be really valuable here are documentation. You can find links to the documentation that will describe how we decide on how we lay out our field plots, how we're actually making these observations, all of the technical and scientific information that goes into this particular observation. We have documented in these PDFs here. And lastly, we have this issue log here. So sometimes we identify an issue in data that we've previously published on our servers. Whenever we make corrections or identify a problem here, we'll list it in this issue log. So especially if you're doing research on breeding land birds in a couple of particular sites, you want to check here in the issue log to make sure that there are no known issues with the specific data sets that you're working with. Once you are satisfied with this information, you can go back to the Explore Data Products page. If you're ready to download the data, you can click Download Data right here. I'm not going to go into this process because it takes a little bit of time, but we do have a great video on our YouTube channel. I will link to that in our workshop page here, and I'll circle back to this once Bridget has completed her section. So this was your 8-minute overview on the NEON site. Of course, if you have any more questions or anything, you can always ask us about that. But let me hand it over here to Bridget so she can start to talk about how NEON can be used on the CyVerse platform. Bridget, are you ready to go here?
Yes, thanks.
Great.
Thanks for that introduction, Donal. As Tina mentioned, I've been at NEON in the remote sensing group for almost 5 years now, and I work a lot with our LiDAR and some of our hyperspectral data mostly. So in my portion of this webinar, I'll do a quick run through of getting you guys up to speed on running a CyVerse discovery environment that Tyson built up to run some of our Python and also R scripts in CyVerse. So there have really been a few main barriers for people starting to use our remote sensing data. One being just the sheer size of it. In workshops in the past, some students who are working on their laptops have maxed out their memory just loading in a single reflectance tile. In addition to that, we have a kind of custom format for our spectral data that if you're not used to it, takes a little bit of a learning curve to come up to speed to that. And then lastly, there's not a lot of open source tools right now for working with this large scale geospatial data. A lot of it's licensed and proprietary. So as an NSF funded institution, we're really pushing for reproducible research in open code. And we're really leaning on the scientific community to help develop that. So tools like CyVerse are really valuable for working with or dealing with all three of those issues. So with that said, I'll get started on a quick demo and I'll show a Jupyter notebook we made to download data using the API. And then from there, we encourage you to kind of explore on your own. So I will start sharing. All right, can everyone see just this web page here? Okay, so we will be demoing the new Discovery Environment 2.0 that I believe just launched this week. And again, as Donal said, don't worry too much about following along, but you'll be able to come back to this recording or follow the steps on our webpage that we'll link to. So first, just type in sonora.cyverse.org, kind of the landing page here. And in these boxes down here are, you can see I have some analyses that I've already started, but there, you can get to the apps by clicking here, and then you can search our NEON app as the Jupyter Lab Geospatial 2.2.9. And there's a little bit of a lag here, but this will happen.
And Bridget, if you open up the 3 lines on the top, it'll expand that toolbar and there's a little bit more information, but there's the app for everybody.
Oh, great. Yeah. Thanks, Tyson. All right. So here I can start a new analysis. So I have some of these Zoom windows. And I'll just call this CyVerse Workshop February. And you can add any comments about your analysis that you're interested in, and then select your output folder here. I'll just keep it on my default analysis. And then a nice thing here with the app is you can manually pull in data. We're not going to do that here because I'm going to show you how to download it using the API. Or you can also input files. So say you're working on some scripts locally and you want to test them out on the CyVerse environment, you could pull those in here as well. Again, we'll just skip the script for now. And then another thing I'll point out is you can point to a shared folder. And here there's a lot of shared folders, and Neon has a couple in here. This Neon workshop, I believe, was from our workshop we gave in November that Tyson will link to. So if you want to pull in something like that, that's a good place to get started as well. And then for this demo, I don't need a lot of memory usage, but you can, or CPU or memory, but you guys can select as much as you need. I'll just do some small amounts here. And then from there, you're ready to launch. So this takes a little bit of time to spin up. So here's this new instance I started. And then if I go to the right over here, if I hover over it, it should say something like go to analysis. So that will open up this nice Jupyter Lab interactive environment in a new web tab here. Alrighty, so here you can see, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Jupyter Labs, but I find it to be pretty intuitive, and we have some different options. Jupyter Notebooks, consoles, and then terminal. And for now, I'll start with the terminal so that I can do some Git commands to clone in a Git repository that I'll demo here. So I'm just going to do a quick command here to clear off this long computer and host name, but don't worry too much about this step. It's just us. All right. And from here, you can use any standard Git commands. So I'll just do git clone, and I have my my little tutorial set up on my personal GitHub. So I'll just type that in here, and Donna can share this in the chat as well if anyone's interested later. All right, so I did git clone http://github/bridgethaas cyverse-neon.git. And here it's pulling in that repository. So here you can see on the left, it's populated this CyVerse Neon folder. And then inside of that, we have a couple different subfolders. Today, I'm just going to focus on this AOP data download. And then I have here a notebook that I'll double click on. And then you can see that opens up another tab in this interactive environment. And really any of the tutorials in here you can run through on your own, and they're really designed to have you test that out. This first section is just a markdown cell that kind of gives you some background on some of the Neon data products. And a lot of this is redundant with what Donna showed on our website, but it's kind of just a quick look to show you where you can find the data product ID numbers that you'll need in the API. And then the other thing I'll point out here is that in this folder, I have a module in here, a Python module, and this has some functions that that I'm going to pull in the notebook. So I encourage you guys to look at this on your own, because this is really the code that allows you to access the API. And I'll just point out real quick that you can generate a token to work with the API specific to you, and we really encourage users to do that. One, for our own data tracking, to get a better sense of who is downloading data, and then also because it can speed up your data download speed. So Donna may speak to this a little more at the end, but I just wanted to point that out, that would be in this request line of code right here. All right, so I'll go back to, sorry, my Zoom features are right in the way, so I have to move this and maximize again. All right, so I'll go back to this, this this workbook here. This is pre-populated because that's how it was on the website. So for those of you who are familiar with Jupyter notebooks, a really nice thing to do whenever you're starting is to do this restart kernel and clear all outputs under the kernel tab. And that's just going to clear out everything that's been run, and then you can start from fresh here with the Python instance that's running in the background. And again, don't worry too much about the syntax here. The idea here is mostly just to show you how you can run on CyVerse. And then from this, you can run through each cell one by one. There's a nice shortcut key, Shift Enter. So I'm just downloading these neon functions that I showed you in this Python script. You can see a list of what's downloaded using this who's command. They call it a magic command. And so you can see there's all these different functions in here. And again, don't worry too much about the details here. The idea is that once you get into this environment, you can just start running through these tutorials and kind of read through them at your own pace. For this, for this demonstration, I just used the site Jornada, which is in New Mexico here, Southwest. And then this function here uses the API to see what is available for this specific data product, which is one of our LiDAR elevation data products. Those are the digital terrain and digital surface models. So I can see all the available URLs on the API for that product, and I can see that we have some for 3 years here, 2017, 2018, and 2019. And it looks like we flew them, 08 is the month, year-month. Looks like we flew them in August every year. You can specify the year if you only want to download it a single year, so that's what I'm doing here. And then this download AOP files function, the question mark at the end just gives you a little more information about it. So I'll run through that. That allows you to download files given the data product ID, the site, the year. The default would be all years. And then a specified data download folder. So that folder is going to be created in the CyVerse environment here. And then if you only want to download a single tile, for example, you can, and you know what tile that is. A tile being a 1,000 meter by 1,000 meter section of the site. You can specify that here at the end. And so here's just an example of that. I'm just downloading a single 1 kilometer tile here from the DTM, and I'm putting it in this data folder that I'll show you guys once it downloads in a second. All right, so that's, it says it's downloading, and then the cell completes once that number populates. And then you can use Linux commands inside Python. So this ls just shows you what's in the data set, and then this is also going to show you the size of that file. All right, so it looks like it's a 3.9 megabyte file, and it's downloaded into this data folder. So I can also find that over here on the left-hand side. I go back to my home folder, I have a data, and I put it inside here. So there's my data tile. And then just for completeness, I'll show you the same thing. We'll download the same tile, but the reflectance, which is a 426 band by 1,000 by 1,000 tile. So it's actually a pretty big file. And for a whole site, this can be quite a bit bigger. So you can see it's taking a little longer, but it shouldn't take too long here.
And Bridget, to be clear, these data are coming from the Neon data store in Colorado, and they're being downloaded to the CyVerse VM, which is probably running in Tucson or in Texas.
Yes, that's correct. I think we might have a backup in Texas or something in Texas, but yeah, I believe it's mostly in this Denver data center. All right, so that finished downloading, and then you can see again, now we have a reflectance folder with that tile. So that's kind of everything I wanted to show here, but from this point, now that you've downloaded data and you can specify whatever you want to download, you're really in this nice, ready-to-go environment, a high-performance computing environment for doing any sort of data exploration or development that you may want to do. And I really like Jupyter for exploration type work when I'm not exactly sure what I'm looking for. But then as you're developing tools and scripts for downloading and working with data, you can build these modules, Python modules, or if you're working in R, similar format, and then eventually pipelines, and then working with Tyson or the CyVerse environment or CyVerse team, you can really build your whole workflow and moving on to CyVerse Atmosphere or other parts of that infrastructure. So yeah, that's mostly what I wanted to demonstrate, and I think Donal has a little bit of wrap up for you guys.
Yeah, that was awesome, Bridget. Great. So I'm going to take back over the share screen here.
Great.
All right. So one thing I forgot to mention before I handed it over to Bridget is where to find those data product IDs. So I'm back here in the Explore Data Products page. You may have already noticed this, but on every one of the data products that pops up, the data product ID is listed right up here at the top. It's also shown prominently in the data product description page. So if you're going through and looking for what those product IDs are, they're not too hard to find. So the couple things I wanted to show to wrap up this conversation are, as Bridget mentioned, you spent the last 12 minutes or so setting up a high performance computing environment, and you've already downloaded a couple of example data sets. So now you're ready to move forward and start to do some research and start to do some exploratory science with those data. So I want to show you a couple of our resources that we have. These are some tutorials that will describe the data products, how to work with them, and how to do various analyses in both R and Python. So to get to those, I'm back on the neonscience.org homepage. You can click the resources arrow down here. First of all, you might want to check out our Code Hub. In the Code Hub, these are user contributed pieces of script that other researchers have developed to conduct their own investigations. So if you are looking to avoid reinventing the wheel, which we would recommend, go ahead and take a look in the Code Hub to see if someone else has already developed code that's relevant for your purposes. If not, you might want to check out our Learning Hub. So if you click the arrow over here, we have a bunch of different learning resources. Tutorials are what I want to focus on right now. So if you click on tutorials, that'll bring you to our tutorial search page. So from here, you have access to over 150 different tutorials that we've developed. You can also access these tutorials through GitHub in the link that I just posted in the chat there. But this is a really nice user-friendly way to interact with them. We have a filter option. Unfortunately, this still isn't working exactly right since we made the new web page. So look for this to be up and running here soon, but you can filter based on different topics that you might be interested in. But you can also search by keyword. So we have a number of tutorials written for both R and Python. Our Python-based tutorials are mostly for remote sensing data. And we also have a variety of tutorials and tutorial series. So if you are scrolling through these options, every once in a while, you'll see a series tag here, which is a collection of tutorials in a recommended order. And I've linked to a few of the different tutorial series on our workshop event page here. The one I really want to point out is about APIs. So there's this one here. It's called Using an API Token When Accessing Neon Data with Neon Utilities. So this will give you instructions on how to set up a user account. These are really helpful for you to keep track of updates on data. There was a question in the chat earlier asking, how do we get notified if there's a known issue about one of these data products? And you would do that through your user account there. Another big advantage of setting up a user account is you can access an API token, which then you can use in your API queries to get around some of our rate limiting blocks that we have in place. So if you are someone who's going to be downloading and using a lot of Neon data, we'd really recommend setting up this user account, working with an API token in either R or Python or really whatever is your preferred API request method so that you can speed up your downloads and keep up to date with the latest developments. That is all I had for this part of the presentation. Thank you all so much for your time and attention. I see the chat box blowing up here, so I think we're going to have some good questions. Tina, would you like to MC this Q&A section here?
Sure. Absolutely. Yes, thank you both. That was fabulous. That's just great to show people not only what it is, but like how to do it. And you've got a nice user-friendly interface there too, to your website too. Yeah, let's read into the audio some of the questions so that, and I'll include the chat text in the materials that we upload so that people can follow along with the links and things. But I'll just go ahead and read some, and then if you guys want to repeat your answers, that'd be great. Gosh, gotta scroll up to the top here. So you mentioned already about how to register for email notifications if a data product was previously downloaded and there's a new issue. But maybe Donna, you want to, or Donald, you want to answer that one again for the audio?
Yes, totally. So we had a good question from Donnie Winston asking about how can you be alerted if we do have an update for a particular data product. And like I just mentioned, if you sign up for a Neon user account, in there you can elect to sign up for kind of notifications on data products of interest. So if you're a remote sensing researcher, you might just want to select all the remote sensing products and see what the latest news is. There's also another place to find that information. I'm going to share my screen here real quick. So if you go back to the Explore Data Products page, actually no, it should just be data.neonscience.org. There is a link to Data Portal News here. And latest news, you might have to follow this link to the new location. Oh, here it is, data notifications. So I'll throw this into the chat window as well. But our data notifications page has recent stories about, so here's one, we realized there was an issue with the @sensor radiance data product for one of our hyperspectral products. And we're just kind of updating the file name here.
Yeah, Donna, that actually wasn't an issue, but we were able to save terabytes of data by just changing the resolution in there. So
awesome. Yeah, thanks for the correction, Bridget. Yeah.
Okay, so the next question is, are tiles TIFF files, but then multi-tile ranges are H5 or HDFS? And then it says extracts to a bunch of 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer TIFF tiles. So.
Yeah, this is a good question. It kind of goes into how we break down our data products. And for AOP, at least, we offer our data both in the flight lines that it was flown, which is obviously a long, thin path, and then you'd have to mosaic those together. Those are our level 1 data products. And our level 3 data products are offered in tiles, where the entire site is mosaic together, and then we break it down into 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer tiles. And most of these L3 data products are in a GeoTIFF format, except for the hyperspectral reflectance and radiance data, which are in this HDF5 format. And the notebooks that I didn't get to in this webinar, but they're in that repository, show you how to read in that HDF5 format. If you're not familiar with that, it's another open source hierarchical data format, similar to NetCDF or some other similar remote sensing data.
Great. Thank you, Bridget. Okay, this is actually a good question. If we follow these steps, then if we edit the notebook, that's only changing the local version of the notebook, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, that's important. Let's see. Going scrolling down, lots of more questions. Okay. I've heard rumors that AOP data will soon be available in Google Earth Engine. Is that correct? Is that true?
Yeah, so we are working towards that, and we've started some conversations with Google Earth. Another member on the team and I are working on developing some Google Earth Engine tutorials for working with Neon data, and currently we have a handful of sites in Google Earth Engine, including a lot of the ones in Desert Southwest. So if you're interested in that, I believe we'll be presenting more on that at ESA this year, and feel free to reach out to me and I can give you a little more information.
And I'll just add that this notebook that Bridget's been running has the Google Earth Python modules installed. So you can actually run Earth Engine scripts inside of this notebook. And then if you download Neon data into the notebook, you can then run those against the Earth Engine scripts.
Yeah, that's something we're definitely looking into developing more in the future. So looking forward to that.
Excellent. What is the current best mechanism to link Neon data with NCBI-based nucleotide sequence data?
All right, I'll be happy to field this question, and in doing so, I'm going to punt it. Unfortunately, I don't know this answer. Bridget, do you have a good answer for this one?
I don't really know much about nucleotide sequence data.
Unfortunately, me either. But we do have experts here at Neon who can answer this question. So, just in general. First of all, we're always happy to hear from researchers out there in the wild who are using Neon data, and we do our best to support you because we're really excited and enthusiastic about all the cool science that's happening with Neon data. So for a question like this that's outside of our area of expertise, if you go to any page on neonscience.org, you scroll down to the bottom, there's a Contact Us link here that'll take you to a Contact Us form. If you enter in a question to this Contact Us form, we have an internal kind of inquiry management system. It's ServiceNow, pretty standard. And we will direct your inquiry to the most appropriate subject matter expert, and we'll get you an answer back as fast as we can. So sorry to have to punt on that one. I'll write this down, and let's see, I see it was asked by Sean. Sean, if you want to send me a direct message with your contact information, I'll make sure you get an answer to this soon.
Thanks. Okay.
I want to just add, so Ryan Bartlemy's on the call from CyVerse, and he's worked a bit with the NCBI data. Ryan, could you answer a little bit about the genomic stuff?
Yeah, so you can actually access it through the API, like the R API of Neon, if you put in the data product, and I believe there are some settings where it's like view full data product, and then you'll be able to get the paths for the sequence files, the FASTQ files, for amplicon data, meta barcode data for like invertebrates and stuff like that, and then there's some soil and water shotgun metagenome data available as well. And that's straight through the API. I don't know if it's actually, I think it's privately cached on NCBI and the SRA, the sequence read archive, but you can access it through with the API. And you definitely want to use the API token that Bridget was talking about at the beginning of this, because those files are also as big as like the AOP data. So
cool. Okay, and then I'm going to answer a couple more questions, Tina. So the Jupyter Lab image that we're running here in CyVerse is available on GitHub and on the Docker Hub. So you can run this on your laptop if you have Docker installed. And then David LeBowers put in a comment about the Ecological Forecasting Institute Challenge, which is ongoing, and giving a link there. So for any of those that are not aware of that, click on that link and learn some more.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you, everyone. This has been great. I love the rich community we have here, people just willing to share not only data and resources, but information and knowledge and expertise. So thank you so much. If there are any other questions, type them in. Otherwise, thanks again to Donna O'Leary and Bridget Haas, as well as my colleagues Tyson Swetnam and Ryan Bartlemy for making this information really hopefully useful to anybody who watches this. As I said, we'll send this video recording onto our website, and you can watch it and rewatch it as much as you want, and I'll make sure that the chat information gets posted as well. Join us in 2 weeks when Iqbal Hossain and Ritu Tuheja will demonstrate a powerful combination of technologies to analyze and visualize large-scale biological networks, in particular for genes, but this, what they'll demonstrate will be applicable to any network analysis in general. So until then, stay healthy, and we will see you back here in 2 weeks. Thanks, everyone.